So we're going to get started now. So I'd like to welcome everyone to the closing rally of Marxism Festival 2024. This weekend has been absolutely amazing because of all of you. We've seen, the Tories get kicked out of office. We've had hundreds of political debates, and we've seen a national Palestine demonstration to show our incoming Prime Minister a very strong message. But also, we've seen over 3,600 tickets sold at Marxism Festival, making it the biggest in decades. My name is Kwabena Devonish. I'm from Cardiff branch of Socialist Workers' Party, and I'm going to be chairing the rally this evening. The rally this evening is titled Resistance in a World of Imperialism and Crisis, and we have three amazing speakers here for you to encapsulate that. Our first speaker is Ramsey Scani. Ramsey is a Palestinian activist based in Berlin, a member of Socialist Workers' Party sister organization, a key activist in demonstrations for Palestine and against resisting the state in Germany. So I'd like to welcome Ramsey.
Thank you, comrades. Thank you for having me. First of all, I have to apologize for my damaged voice, but I am not going through a second phase of puberty, nor did I party too long in the Institute bar yesterday. I shouted my heart out at this amazing and powerful demonstration for Palestine on Saturday. And it was really encouraging to see the power of internationalism unfolding there in our bloc with our comrades from the UK, from South Korea, from the Netherlands, from Turkey, from France, from wherever they were, and from Germany. It was amazing. Marxism Festival is keeping alive the tradition of internationalism from below. And when has this ever been more central than today? If we look around in the world of crisis, of catastrophe, of imperialism and war, and of the genocide going on in Gaza that we have to stop by any means necessary. I want to start with sharing a very personal story with you, because I think it's very relevant in order to understand how we can relate to people today, to millions of people today. In 2014, my father and my half-siblings from the age of 4 to 12 were murdered by the Israeli army in Gaza. And despite all of them having the German citizenship, Germany laid to rest the case, even though they said there were clear evidence of war crimes being committed against them because of political reasons and diplomatic reasons regarding the Israeli state. This was my personal story. This was my personal story that radicalized me and brought me to the international socialist tradition in the end, because I saw the state institutions, the politicians I elected were not the ones that gave me anything. Even the reformists that promised very little and delivered even less, nothing, to be very precise, did anything about that. And I had questions. I had many questions. What is happening? Why is it happening? And how can we change it? What is to be done? And I started reading, I started connecting, I started reading Tony Cliff from the international socialist tradition. I started reading Chris Harman, and I started to contact the German section that was in this tradition. But I think, yeah, and I'm glad I did, because none of the others I was reading had convincing answers for me from my experiences, from my family's experiences, when it came to the questions of Zionism, of the Israeli working class, of Islamism. And we see that very clearly today during the ongoing genocide. And now there are millions of people, their whole family names wiped out in Gaza. And it's not only the millions of Palestinians around the world being devastated by this imperialist barbarism and the genocidal assault in Gaza, but as the slogan said, in our thousands, in our millions, we are all Palestinians. Exactly, that's what so many people around the world are feeling. They identify with the oppressed. They identify with their struggle against a capitalist system that has nothing to offer for them, where they see in them, in focus, everything that is wrong with this rotten, unequal system of exploitation and oppression that we have to overcome in order to change the world and say that another world is possible. And the answers others have to offer is, okay, well, BDS is anti-Semitic. You can't do it. Supporting armed resistance is terrorism. You can't do it. What they offer is stay in silence, let them die. Die in silence to the Palestinians in Gaza. This is not an answer we will accept. We won't die in silence, and we will not stay silent globally. And the horrors that are unfolding in Gaza, they will continue, and they will affect many more people, millions around the world, unless we stop this system that breeds inter-imperialist rivalry around the world. We see the devastation and the age of catastrophe unfolding already. We see millions of people getting more and more angry at the consequences of decades of neoliberal misery, and it will get worse with the growing tendency to huge imperialist wars. Because who are the ones who will be paying for these imperialist wars? It will not be the capitalist classes that are leading and ordering these wars that are not ours. It is the ordinary people that are working for their livelihood in order to survive. And there will be attacks due to this militarization on social cuts, on funding, on housing, on education, on our health sector, and so on. And wherever there are these cuts, wherever there is repression, there will be resistance growing. And we have to be there. We have to be in your workplace, in your neighborhood, in your street, in your movement, where you are active in order to reach people, because we cannot let it happen that it will be only a coincidence that people might read the right stuff like I did, but that we have to be there, that we have to build revolutionary socialist mass parties that are able to connect to these people and reach them. Because if we don't, there will not be a vacuum. And we have seen that with the election of the European Union very clearly. The dangerous rise of the neo-fascists around Europe and beyond. They are the movement and the forces of despair, of the exact opposite of what we have to be, the movement of hope that another world is possible. If I talk to my family when we can reach them, despite blackout and the cuts in Gaza under the blockade, in Rafah as well as in the north, what they are telling me is what gives them hope are the pictures of the millions around the world fighting for their struggle, identifying with them. And if you would have asked me 5 or 10 years ago, will I ever see US students starting with encampments at the universities, this spreading around the world, I wouldn't have believed you. I was never so happy to have been so wrong. I would never have believed you. Felt like someone had to pinch me. And this is what so many Palestinians are feeling. And this is the power of hope, that we have to organize and give direction against the structures of this system and the ruling classes that are not only murdering Palestinians in a genocide, but they are also exploiting and oppressing millions and billions around the world, the majority of the world. And the Palestinian dying in Gaza shares this interest to stop this system with a single mother in England or somewhere else fighting to afford the living of her children in poverty. That is what we have to deliver. It's either socialism or ongoing catastrophe. And time is running out. And I tell you something. I'd rather stand fighting, facing this, face on, side by side with my comrades around the world than being alone, individualized, atomized in my room. And that's why I joined a revolutionary socialist organization in the International Socialist Tendency. And if you haven't already, as I said, time is running out. Now is not the time to think twice. Join the Socialist Workers' Party, join the International Socialist Tendency and their sections around the world, whether in the Netherlands, in Turkey, whether in Germany or South Korea, or wherever you may be and find them. It's the time to get organized and fight back against this rotten system worldwide. Let's globalize the Intifada. There is only one solution. There is only one solution. There is only one solution. Thank you so much, comrades.
Thank you so much for that, Ramses. And I think it's very important what he said about what we do here that matters, you know, the demonstrations that we go on. And because of those demonstrations, we're seeing an intense wave of repression from the police happening. I'm just going to do a little announcement before I introduce our next speaker. There's a current campaign going on with the Cardiff 19, and we're hoping to create a national campaign to support everyone who's repressed by the police for supporting Palestine. The Cardiff 19 are 19 pro-Palestine protesters who were arrested in Cardiff and Swansea. One of them was a 12-year-old Palestinian girl and a 70-year-old, Palestinian protester. And our campaign is basically to push the police to drop all the charges, to cease the investigation, but ultimately is to defend our right to protest. We've seen with the police crime and sentencing bill. We see the powers being used from the police crime and sentencing bill being used now in these times. And it's so important that we defend our right to protest so we can continue to show solidarity with the Palestinian people. So we have these QR codes. If you scan it, it goes to the petition where you can sign it. And also, if you're part of an organization, a union, please sign it as an organization as well. So yeah, we've got the QR code hopefully on the screen. Oh. Very advanced technology. So yeah, if you get your phones out and scan it, and it'll take you straight to the petition and the full statement. Also, another announcement. So straight after this rally, we'll be heading to the Institute of Education bar. A few people were there last night. So yeah, come down to the bar to mingle with people and celebrate the end of a fantastic festival and to help us hit our minimum spend as well. So I'm going to introduce our next amazing speaker. So Denis Godard has come all the way to us from France. And here to tell us really, well, this weekend has told us, you know, the severity of what's happening in France with the rise of the RN. And, you know, we're honored to have Denis come here. Denis is a long-time anti-racist activist in Paris and is also part of one of our sister organizations. So I'd like to welcome Denis to the stage.
Begin with something that is not pessimistic. Whatever the results of the elections this evening, the streets in every city of the country in France will be ours. At 8 o'clock, at the time when the results will be published, demonstrations have been called everywhere, illegal demonstrations, and people will demonstrate illegally in every street by thousands this evening. You know, the first time I came at Marxism, it was a long time ago, it was at the beginning of the 90s. There was somebody called Tony Cliff, who was the founder of the Socialist Workers' Party. He was arguing that the character of the period we were living in at the beginning of the 90s was his expression, was the 30s running in slow motion. It isn't right anymore. The movie now is running very quickly. If you look at France, we don't know the results at the moment. But the only option that a fascist party, the Rassemblement National, could get the majority on the parliament and run the government is much than a warning about the situation. And let me say that, you know, maybe the situation in France is the most dramatic one, but it's a general trend. It's not just the trend in France. And just to give you a glimpse of what it would mean, the fascists in the government in France, they already planned the members of their government. And the man they plan to put as the minister of the police. And in France at the moment, when you talk about the police is voting 60% for the Rassemblement National. And the minister of the police is not only responsible for law and order, to tell if demonstrations are legal or not legal. Is responsible for dealing with the religions as well. When you imagine what it means for the Muslims in France, the police, the minister of the police is responsible for immigration. The man they plan to put at this post is a man called Fabrice Leggeri. He has been elected in the list of the Rassemblement National for the European election, at the European election, and is now a deputy in the European Parliament. This man was the director of the Frontex agency. He had to be dismissed a little bit more than 1 year ago, even on the standard of the European Parliament, because he went too far, because he was supporting illegal pushback. You know, this illegal pushback by the Coast Guards on the coast of European continent, supported by Frontex agency, who were responsible for the deaths of more than 600 migrants and refugees in front of Pylos just 1 year ago. That is this man they want to put as the Minister of the Police in France. It gives an idea of what it would mean. I don't believe that the most probable result of the election will be the Rassemblement National to get a majority. You know, it's not a relief. They will get at least 200 MPs. And the majority is 289. They will be the first group of MPs in the parliament in any case. But even if they don't succeed to get the majority, the situation we will have will be there will be no majority for any group. So the situation will be a very unstable government. You know, I was talking about the 30s, the kind of regime that Germany experienced in the years leading to Hitler going to power, the Weimar Republic, with unstable governments, with a parliament completely unable to rule, so a government governing by decrees and by force, and going more and more right-wing till they gave the power to Hitler. That is this kind of situation we're going to go in the next weeks, the next months, and the next years in France. In this situation, you know, when the parliament is not able to rule, it's called, you know, it's a rule by force, where the decisions more and more will be decided by a balance of power in the streets, in the workplaces, everywhere. What we call direct class war, more and more. That is the situation we are going in France in the next months and the next years. In this situation, you know, our tasks are clear. The first one is to build in every workplace, in every neighborhood, class unity, class solidarity, what in our group in France we call class autonomy. Some rank and file organization in every workplace, some organization in every neighborhood, able to fight fascism, to fight racism and Islamophobia, to fight for solidarity with migrants and with Muslims, to build committees in solidarity with Palestine in every workplace, in every neighborhood. That's the first thing, the first task. The second task, which is connected with this one, and even a condition to be able to do that, is to build, to have more and more revolutionary socialists able to take initiative, able to argue, able to build this kind of movement and this kind of organization. And I tell you why we need, and it's a condition to have more and more revolutionary socialists, organized ones, able to argue and to build this kind of politics. Here is because, like in the 30s, the main politics in the left organization, in the trade unions, in the trade union leadership, will be the opposite one, will be to say that in this kind of situation, in front of this kind of danger, don't be too radical. That you have to build class collaboration to defend a sort of peaceful capitalism against fascism. You have not to be too rude against racists. You have to be soft with racism to prevent racists to become fascists. The exact opposite politics that one compared to the ones we need. That's what happened. A politics that disarm our camp, that dissipate our strength. Because I'm going to finish with this. Fascism has not won. We are stronger in the places, on the ground where the decisions are taken, are solved, on the streets, on the neighborhoods, on the workplaces. We have seen in France last year, millions of workers going on strike. We have seen last year in more than 500 of cities, the youth fighting, rioting against the police in solidarity with a young guy who was killed by the police, burning the police station. It was still the case. The solidarity movement, especially in the youth, spread in the last months in France. A movement of solidarity. One of the first, we don't know the results. Yes, we know one result. In Kanaki, where there were an insurrection, a French colony, there were one MP elected. We know it because they voted before, because, the MP elected is called Chibao. He's the son of the most well-known leader of Kanaki independence force who was killed, assassinated by the fascists. He has been elected to the new parliament. I'm going to finish about this. I said that this night, streets will be ours by thousands. It gives a glimpse as well of the confidence of the fascists. They are circulating on the networks, the places, the exact places where the pickets and the demonstration will happen this evening, saying that, calling for the fascists to go to attack them. I'm not sure they will dare. But even if they're there, they will be smashed. Because on the streets, there are few, we are bigger, we are stronger. So now it's time not to let our strengths to be dissipated, You understood? We are black, we are white, together we are dynamite.
Thank you so much, Denis, for that. Very passionate, and that's what we need. We need that passion to be out on the streets, mobilizing and fighting back against the fascists. So for our last speaker, last but not least, we have Sophia Beach. Sophia is one of the leading members of the Socialist Workers' Party. She is also one of the organizers of Marxism Festival, and she is also the co-author of Why You Should Be a Socialist, which you can still get, it's still available. And she's gonna round off the closing rally. So I'll hand over to Sophia.
Cheers. Thank you to Kabina. The first act is over. I was warned I might be a bit too short for this lectern, but it looks like people can see me. Look, I want to start with a quote, actually. And who this quote is from might surprise you, because it is not a quote from Karl Marx. It is not a quote from Lenin or from Trotsky or from anyone on the left, actually. It is a quote from a man called Marcus Fish, who is the former Conservative MP for Yeovil, who quit the Conservative Party today. And this is what he said: "Everyone is wasting their time with it. And I'm just calling it how I see it, really. If it was my business," i.e. the Conservative Party that he's talking about here, "if it were my business, I'd wind it up." The sooner it is put out of its misery, the better. And that is what I think needs to happen. I would actually dissolve the corporate entity of the party, and I would start again with a new brand, a new leader, and everything. There is no point being involved in it. So look, I didn't think I would know or have so much in common with a former Conservative MP. I think that's a sentiment that everybody in this room can share. And look, it's a tradition often to start with some thank yous when we talk about the closing rally. So I actually want to thank, just as we have been doing throughout the last 4 days, the Conservative Party from completely destroying themselves in this election. And look, we've already said it, but we can say it time and time again. Do you know, it doesn't get old. I actually just think it gets better. The fact that Jacob Rees-Mogg can no longer lounge on the seats of the House of Commons is a good thing. Penny Mordaunt is gone. Gillian Keegan is gone. Grant Shapps is gone. You know, people who have decimated and attacked working class fighters when they have struck. It is good that they are gone from the Houses of Commons. But actually, I think some of the highlights of the election night can mean that we forget some of the pure comedy gold that the Conservative Party blessed us with before they left. I actually want to thank Rishi Sunak and his team for running the most unsuccessful election campaign that I have ever seen in history. Because it started, didn't it? It started with Rishi Sunak, who, but to be honest, about this height from the lectern like me, I think we're about the same size. It started with Rishi Sunak in the pouring rain outside Downing Street, announcing the SAP election. I mean, if there was ever a real true meaning or a show of prophetic fallacy, that is clearly what it was, right? But from the pouring rain to him being asked if he was the head of a sinking ship when he visited Belfast's Titanic water, to even when his leadership or his campaign team had kept him hidden for a number of days, and they thought, do you know what can't go wrong? Let's go out and take him to the kind of things that are meant to be the most natural followers in society. They led him out to a field of sheep, and even the sheep ran away from Rishi Sunak. So look, thank you for all of those things. And do you know what? I am looking forward to the next 6 months or some of those moments of seeing the Tory party rip themselves apart in the next leadership election. And, you know, clearly from the quote from Marcus Fish, that's already started. But of course, we know that there is also an incredibly serious element to the disintegration of the Conservative Party, and that is the rise of the Reform UK. Because now in Britain, this is the first time in history that we have a hard right bloc of MPs in Parliament, of racists, of reactionaries, of the bigots that make up Reform UK. And look, these people, they pretend that they're friends of the working class, don't they? They pretend that they're friends of our movement, that they're just sticking up for the common man when nobody else will. Well, look, actually, let's have a little look at who these people are. Nigel Farage, a millionaire stockbroker who looks like he belongs on a farm in his tweed suits and his granddad caps. Although that being said, he's never got his hands dirty on one because of how clean that they are, and doesn't get his hands dirty in anything. Think about someone like Richard Tice, again, a millionaire businessman who is married to the former political editor of the Sunday Times. These people are not part of the working class. They are not friends of the working class. These people are members of the establishment and members of the elite. And they are liars, they are racists, they are sexists, they are homophobes and transphobes and every other rotten ideology that there is out there. And that is why it was fantastic that our comrades in Stand Up to Racism disrupted Nigel Farage. Brilliant work. I mean, I could watch those videos again and again, because then what were the headlines? The headlines were that Nigel Farage didn't get a smooth run in, but that he was disrupted by anti-racists who did it. So well done to everybody who is involved. Because that's what we have to do, isn't it? We have to fight Farage from day one. Because what is Nigel Farage's project? Well, he looks at Europe, he looks at France, like Denis just spoke about, and he wants to take us down that road. And that road is an incredibly dark and dangerous one. As we've just heard, look at France, and we will see with the election results tonight. But one of the most worrying things about Marine Le Pen is that she is no longer an anomaly. For a while, she was the only sort of person in the Euro-fascist movement who had an electoral strategy, but that is not the case anymore. If you look across Europe, the set is complete. Alternative for Deutschland in Germany on 30% in the polls, the Vox Party in Spain, Meloni, head of the Fratelli d'Italia in Italy. And the list goes on. And that is why I think one of the biggest messages to come out of Marxism 2024 is that here in Britain, we have an urgent task to push back that threat of going down the road of Europe. And that starts with every single person in this room and their friends and their colleagues and their granddads and their kids fighting against Tommy Robinson on the 27th of July. Every single person, every single part of the movement. But not only that, we also have to build an anti-racist movement that will take on the racism that we will see from Farage and from the top in Parliament, because this is where the racism really comes from. And if there is one man who will not be the answer to taking on that racism, a man who sees Jeremy Corbyn as more of a threat than Nigel Farage, that man is called Sir Keir Starmer. Boom, exactly. Or Sir Kid Starver, as they call him in the movement. We know that we have got no hope in a Labour government. If the Tories ran the most unsuccessful election campaign in history, Starmer ran the most uninspiring one. We know exactly where Keir Starmer stands on Palestine, on trans rights. Think about how he attacked the Bangladeshi community just last week. We cannot rely on Keir Starmer and the Labour Party to address the ills of the system. Actually, he is there to protect those ills of the system, to protect the British state, to uphold the status quo. And that is why it has been so good and fantastic here at Marxism Festival to have been joined by Claudia Webb, by Michael Lavalette, by our very own Maxine Bowler, by Andrew Feinstein today, who stood against Keir Starmer in his seat. And I heard he took over half of his vote. You know, Keir Starmer took a battering. Yes, he may have got a majority in seats, but he was shocked by the amount that Feinstein got. And that is why it was fantastic yesterday for us to welcome here at Marxism Festival the newly re-elected MP for Islington North, Mr. Jeremy Corbyn. He did his election rally here. Despite it pissing down with rain, the mood was electric in the culture tent. And I think this is really what we can see from the sizable and the considerable vote that the independent candidates got who stood against Labour, because there is real discontent in society, and that is aimed at the Labour Party. Yes, there is a threat from the right, but there is also the potential to build a bigger fighting left here in Britain. And look, the votes show that. It's fantastic that 2 cabinet ministers lost their seats, Stangham, Devonair, and Jonathan Ashworth. It could have been 3. It could have been Wes Streeting. So congratulations to Leanne Mohammed. She was within touching distance of being the 6th independent candidate. But we know, actually, the Labour Party base is narrow, and their majority is built on sand. We have the power and the potential to mobilise against that kind of government. Because the last thing we need is a Tory party Mark II in the form of Labour. We need a left that fights and that builds struggle. Because what really can we learn from the last 9 months? Well, look, Ramsey spoke incredibly movingly about the Israeli repression of Palestinians, not just for the last 9 months, but for the last 76 years. What have we learned since October the 7th? Firstly, we have learned about how far Israel is prepared to go. Israel will stop at absolutely nothing in its genocide of the Palestinians. And we understand why. Because this is the logic of Zionism, the logic and the natural conclusion of settler colonialism. And that is why it is an ideology that has to be fought from the start. The entirety, every single person in the room has to not just stand with Palestine, but be a committed anti-Zionist that says that there is no place for Israel in a world like this. And we fight against it every single day. I think the second thing that the last 9 months has shown us is that the biggest earthquake has not actually been the election result. The biggest earthquake in British society is not George Galloway, it is not Jeremy Corbyn, but it is the massive Palestine movement that has shook this country for the last 9 months. That is the kind of movement that can change things. Palestine has been a lightning rod for all of the things that are wrong within society. And it is that movement, week in, week out, that has fought against Israel and fought against the complicity of our system. From the student camps to workplace walkouts to the massive demonstrations that we've seen. And that's why it was fantastic yesterday to join the demonstration and welcome in Keir Starmer by saying, we will not let you rest. We will not stop until every single piece of Palestine is free, from the River Jordan to the Mediterranean Sea. And the last thing I think the last 9 months has taught us is that the question of Palestine matters. Of course that does. The question of politics matters. And how we actually fight against this system that has produced Israel and how we organize. Because to be honest, like others on this panel have said, I don't think we need more activists. I think we need more class fighters. We need more people and a bigger movement who will never make concessions when the attacks on our movement come, and they will come from the new Labour government. We need a movement that never concedes on the question of Palestine, always says for a one-state solution, and always talks about the Palestinians' right to resist. I'm proud to be in an organisation that on the 8th of October said Palestinians have the right to fight against Israeli apartheid by whatever forms they choose. And we didn't just say it. We didn't just say it on the 8th of October. We said it in 2014 on the siege of Gaza. We said it in 2000s in the Second Intifada. We said it in 1987 in the First Intifada, and in the Palestinian revolts of the 1930s. They have always been right to fight against Israeli settler colonialism and Zionism, and we will always be there to fight with them. But I think the second thing is that we say we have a movement that doesn't concede on any question. We know that the attacks on immigration are going to come from the Labour Party. That means we have to build a movement as well that says every single refugee, no matter where you are from in the world, is welcome here in Britain. Every single refugee. And lastly, we have to take on a movement that won't concede or take on the bigots. That is why, when you look at what Keir Starmer says, when he attracts trans rights, we say no. We will build a movement that says trans men are men, trans women are women, non-binary people exist. And if you don't like that, you can clear off. You're the people that we don't want in society. And this is a set of politics that sees all of these problems in the world interlinked. We want a kind of movement that fights against every single thing of these together. Because the politics that we need is the kind of movement that tackles the system at its roots, that tears down the system of imperialism, of racism and oppression. I mean, Denny spoke about it when they tell us about our movement. They say, you know, don't be too radical, don't be too rude. We cannot be rude or radical enough in the face of the people and the enemies that we have. You know, think about the climate movement that we've seen. They say system change, not climate change. And that is the kind of thing that we want to see as well, because capitalism is hurtling us towards catastrophe at a pace not seen since the 1930s. And the only thing that can slow that down and can stop it is the element of revolutionary change. So look, just to finish, we have an incredibly big task on our hands. And as I'm sure everybody knows, Marxism has been an absolutely fantastic festival. It has been a brilliant 4 days. As Ramsey said, this has been a truly international festival as well. And that is right, because we are trying to build an international movement. And I just want to finish by saying I want to thank every single person who has worked incredibly hard to make Marxism happen. I want to thank the staff. I want to thank the staff at UCL. I want to thank even more the students at UCL, the student encampment. One of the student encampments said that it is their campus. They are right, it is their campus. And thank you for having us. And I want to thank every single person who has worked hard to make Marxism happen. Bookmarks Bookshop, the best bookshop in the world. Keep buying your books from there. I want to thank the tech team who have done all the recording and making sure that you can hear me now, and all the speakers. I want to thank the culture team who have put on all the live music, all of the competitions. And last but certainly not least, I want to thank the brilliant, and they should stand up, Marxism team in the pink t-shirts down here, who would not have Marxism would not have happened without them. They have done a fantastic job. I'm blushing. And look, just to say, everyone can buy them a drink. Everyone can buy them a drink in the after party afterwards, because look, their job over the last 4 days has not been easy, but we actually know that the job that we have starting now will not be easy too. We know the task ahead of us when we have to leave this hall and what we have to do. We may not be doing it immediately. I know I certainly will need a drink in the Institute after this, but from tomorrow, I know the urgent task that we face, because we know that this is a time where people have to stand up and be counted because of all of the things we've spoken about. And we have to stand together. And to be honest, I want to stand with every single person in this room against all of the problems of capitalism that we have seen. And that is why I just want to finish by saying that if you haven't already decided to join the Socialist Workers' Party this weekend, now is the time to do so. Stand with us. Be part of the system, be part of a movement that fights against the system, and be part of a party that will take on the rotten bastards at the top of society, and we will win if we are bigger. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for that, Sophia. Before we go, I'm going to bring up one more person. Lorna McKinnock is responsible for all the amazing events happening in the culture tent, all the music. So I want to bring Lorna up to lead us.
You're sing with me. Yeah, we're gonna finish with a song, the Internationale. A song of the international working class and our tradition. And it's up to you, but if you can, if you'd like to, I'd invite you to stand. And more than that, you must sing in key. We'll be doing it in B flat. Okay, ready? Arise, ye starlings, from your slumbers. Arise, ye prisoners of want. For reason and revolt now thunders, and at last ends the age of cant. So away with all your superstitions. Several masses, rise, arise. We'll change forth with the old conditions and spurn the dust to win the prize. So comrades, come rally, and the last fight let us face. The internationally unites the human race. So comrades, come rally, and the last fight let us face. The internationally unites the human race. So that
Palestine! 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 Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you all for being a part of Marxism. Let us continue to organize and mobilize and take this energy today. And hopefully we'll see you on the streets on the 27th. Thank you.